Welcome back from the commercial break. We are continuing with our discussion, a very pertinent discussion in this weekend, where you cannot be left out. And we speak to the nation, we speak to you, fellow countrymen and women outside there, the young and the old, policy makers, in this matter of investment in human capital development for economic productivity. Once again, for a reminder, we are with our dear guest, Mr. Conan Businje. He is a head of marketing department at Victoria University, and together with also Dr. Pontius Kabera, is the head of department education. And our very passion in this discussion is to look at whether the new education curriculum policy design can bridge the gap for job market demand in Uganda and the globe. While looking at our topical discussion, we are very much aware that this country is much more demanding for economic productivity. Where there is economic productivity, that becomes the genesis of solving the economic, crisis. Because economic productivity versus economic crisis, we must do a lot that is dealing with what a human being, what we are investing in the human capital matters very much. We are a population, dear viewers, of around 45 million Ugandans, and the adult age of around now towards 18 million, those who are in a position to work. And even I use the word of adult age, not limiting that a child, your child at home, should be trained to work as soon as he is at a level. There are levels of education which Dr. Kabera will remind me of, where the intellect is in a position to think through and do something and be productive. I remember, in fact, this matter when we were young, around the age 9, 10, and when I grew up and I saw people building, and I also I could get some sticks and then construct my small house. So by that time, that means I had begun to grow. So productivity should begin by that time. And again, I'm reminded that some countries like China, as all of us were aware, that you find a young child, some of these pens we are talking about, you talk about some small, these jewels, you find that a child at the artworks, a child at the age of 10, 12 is beginning to do something. And that is part of the process of human capital development. Again, for our dear viewers to understand us, we are indebted to know and understand it at the wider perspective that family planning is not basically meaning that there should not be production, where the citizens can be able to have, the increased number of the population, the demography to rise up. For some countries, they count on their human resource to be an asset than reliability. It is high time Uganda should also toward the same line. And also, it is important for us to know, as the dear viewers and guests come on, especially the guests come on to articulate on these issues, that the previous around 10 or 20 over 60 and graduate up to 600 every year. The connection, the chain into the job market demand remains very low. As Ugandans, and for us as Smart 24 TV, we find it valuable to bring this discussion on the table and connect with you, the stakeholders, citizens, and policymakers, to even make even a quick shift where we find what we're saying may be valuable for our country economic growth. I would like to welcome you, Dr. Kabera, once again, to see how we feed into this discussion, especially to enrich it better, and possibly one policy maker outside there who matters may say, we think we need to think about this.
Thank you so much, our viewer, for staying with us, staying tuned to Smart 24. This is the only station where you'll be learning a lot to do with education. We are education, and we are here to talk about education and how we can sanitize the sector. and be able to produce the human labor force that is required for our market, not only local, East Africa, but also the global market. When you look at the new curriculum policy framework, which is a competence-based curriculum, it has an element of vocationalization of learning, discovering human competencies, competence for learners, so that we are able to help them in the process of their education, to address the problems that our societies are subjected to or are exposed to. There are 2 or 3 dimensions of CBC, competence-based curriculum. And when you look at all those dimensions, they all underlie a main dimension called quality education. So the dimension I'm talking about are workshops and seminars. Because competence-based learning, at the end of the day, we learn from what people are saying, we learn people helping us discover ourselves, right, in leadership and all that. But what is this quality, and how are we exercising this quality? How are we teachers, policymakers, key players in education actually ascertaining quality education? My brother Conan, when he was starting his submission, he talked about millions of students that enroll at primary education level. I myself am a victim. I'm a beneficiary of universal primary education, because I think we are the pioneers. 1997. That's when I started the primary one.
1997.
Yes, in a village school. I very well remember we started when we were 91 students. 91 students. By the time we reached primary 7, in that very school where we started from, St. Charles Ruangaka Primary School. Shout out to you all my OBs and OGs who are watching me from Busuju, sub-county, from Kachindu. I salute you all.
That's where you come from.
Yes, that's where I come from.
You should go back and represent your people.
I'm looking forward to that.
That's very intelligent.
Yeah,
I'll make a good case for the Wananchi.
Thank you so much, my brother. Yeah, so by the time we reached P7, we were 27 out of the 90. And now, coming from the same area with villages that are near each other, I could know almost the 91, each and every home where they come from. I could know, I can tell that this one was a son who was coming from this home, a daughter was coming from this home. And they disappeared. They did not go anywhere, they stayed in the community. Some of them, by the time we finished P7, they were nearly producing their firstborns. One of my classmates has a kid that is supposed to be at the university. By the time my brother was marrying, for him he had given birth, and we were in senior 2. Right? So, but those people weren't slow. Those people had the capacity. They have the capacity to become better people. They have capacity to be able to meet their basic needs. And what you're looking at here in competence-based curriculum is to excavate competencies in our learners that can help them meet their community, address their community issues and their family, to be able to live above poverty line, to be skilled enough to do the basics of life for them to survive. That is what developed economies have done. Governments, policy makers have come, because the economists is the word wananchi. They understand that we are working not only for our families but for an ordinary citizen. That is why they lower prices on commodities even when they have provided a free education. They have vocational institutes in communities, in districts. You find that, for example, I'm well versed with China. I was there for almost 10 years.
China.
Yes. If you go to Wuhan province, Wuhan, yeah, where COVID started from.
Oh, they're the ones who manufacture.
Yes. I don't know about their manufacturing of that, but that's where COVID started from. You find they have different centers, different districts within Wuhan, and each district has close to 3 vocational institutes. Vocational institutes. What in Uganda they call Abawesi. A person, a minute,
Yes,
doctor.
yes.
A person who did not go to college, money, his own manufacturing, the way he use, like Conan use the term family industries, right? He's earning money and is contributing to community development more than a PhD holder in Africa.
And you can imagine.
Because for them they were able to understand that our societal problems will not only be addressed by
The degrees.
but they will be addressed by how much we have invested in capacitating our populace with the basic skills.
And the president is actually trying to do the same thing here. Where they're starting tertiary institutions almost every sub-county. But the question is, have people in government, people, the politicians, are either the local leaders and we the academicians like Dr. Ponshan, we need now probably begin speaking about the language of technical and vocational education. Because I think the president has a picture where he would want to go. I think he already saw the magic. The problem is that he is leading a nation where people are so much buried into degrees. People can celebrate and say, in our family we have 5 degrees. I hear people say those things. And they say, for God, you say 5 degrees, okay, tell me about your income. I would want to hear someone bragging, saying, our capital base as a family is 7 billion shillings. I love that. But you tell me I have 10 degrees, so what then?
Mr. Cannon, in that regard, much as I don't go to the blame game, but our policymakers, starting with indeed, also including the implementers, whether the head of state and talk about ministers and member of parliament, in the design of the universal primary education, going back to part of the history, we are not cutting off where you reached, but he has brought a pertinent issue. We seem not to have taken long to learn and decide, especially how best policies can be improved. One time I had the opportunity to be facilitated in part of the sharing the experiential life and of policy making by Professor Jesse Kama, and he told us of how he plans to go and enable the development of the education policy in Nigeria, and of which finally it's being appreciated as you understand the level of productivity of the human capital in Nigeria and some of those other countries. He told us about Kenya seems to be better. But the design of UPE 1997, as my colleague says it, congratulations to have succeeded, but up to where we are, we have taken time to determine, to decide as a country, especially by policymakers. Policymakers are the drives, sir. The way I'm coming to you, I'm making that comprehensive statement. The way the ministry had Minister of Education, I was very much more conversant with the wisdom of Honorable Manya Mushiga and many more others. You talk about, of course, Francis Babu, Captain when he was a state minister, and many more others. And up to where we are, of where now, by the way, under the new minister, the Minister of Education, the First Lady, where she has either maybe connected with other policymakers do something alongside under that ministry. We seem to have taken time, and that has drained us. And even now to quicken and implement, still it looks to be going to take time while we are talking about the new culture of design vis-a-vis the challenge. How fast can we go, you see, in order to come out better?
So Dr. Chinde,
statements, design, good policy programs versus the reality.
You see, Dr. Chinde, this country's problems of education, one time I told you one on this show, we're in a system where we seem to be under siege. Abaganda babuyita buwambe.
Buwambe kabisa.
Yeah. Twawambibwa in our education system. And the buwambe bwenjogerako, people shouldn't misunderstand me. I'm talking about we were corrupted by the colonial education, pre-colonial education. The system, our problems, as I said at the beginning, is depicted in the colonial education. To an extent, you see parents of what the one I'm talking about. Why would you think that to get a degree is the only best things? I've had people lambasting UPE and saying UPE was rubbish, UPE has not helped our kids, UPE is for people, for the poor, the rich children going to UPE schools. They forget one best thing. Before UPE, and if there was no UPE, there's a book actually done by Andrew Mwenda, and that was commissioned by people in government, especially the First Lady. It's about the other side of UPE. And I loved that. I know I've read that book. You should get to Andrew Mwenda and ask him to give, I should ask him to give you a copy of that. It shows that without UPE, this country would be 10 times buried under. But has UPE solved everything we need? No. But UPE has been very transformational in actually raising the level of learning. Because if you look at the literacy level, it was terrible before UPE and USE. And it has produced very graduates. You see a gentleman sitting here with, I do not know how his parents were able or not at the time, but probably there are people like him, probably they are PhD holders. Some of them had resources to go to school. But it has raised some people to go to even higher levels of education. Some have not managed to go to that level of education. But I think what is missing in our education system is when the president started the vocational technical institutes and the rest, we are still buried into what Dr. Kabul was talking about, the degree mentality. If you don't have a degree, you are not worth it. Even when you go for a barrier, they say, Awasoma, now you come with your technical institute. But now things are changing. If you find a guy who is a technical school holder, he might be the vet in the village, and he has a vehicle, he can even drive to a barrier and even contribute 1 million shillings. As you degree holders come and you can't even contribute 200 shillings on the barrier. So the reality is that we need to break from the mentality of only thinking degrees are the only point of making it in life. And should you choose to do a degree, the institution you go to had better be that good. There's something we've said that Victoria University is called experiential learning. We connect you to a world of work. The world of work, you ask me how did that boy, that gentleman, learn to actually do graphics that good when actually was not that exposed to the real, he came from the same schools. What he did, when he graduated, he started volunteering at a graphics center. He would do work for this, do this, run, do this, and then he became an expert in his trade as a young man, and now he can do graphics, can do moving graphics and the rest. So we must go to a level. If people have missed out on experiential learning we're doing at Victoria University and you're a graduate, go volunteer in an organization. Come volunteer and say, guys, me, I'm going to volunteer at Smart TV. I'll be the one cleaning your cameras. I learned something about cleaning cameras. Or I'll be lifting your stands. I'm a degree holder. I will help your staff lift the stands. Before you know, the guys will be asking you, aren't you a degree holder? Like at Victoria University. I took cleaning. Then I met her and asked her, which class did you stop in? I said, no, I'm actually a diploma holder. And you've settled for only cleaning. You can do something else. So it shows that we've got to find mechanisms of supporting our people up their skills. We have so many graduates, we have so many good brains, but do not have the they need to survive and be able to contribute to our education. Those kids who didn't go to the university, they're not stupid. They're not. Some of them, they just missed the opportunity of going through school because of tuition and the rest. Some of them, as the president has been charged people in primary and secondary and at high schools, around free education. Schools are charging and people fall off. So what do you do for them? Start enterprises, small businesses, or small training ways of getting them skills.
Okay, thank you so much. We will continue where you had reached, and the concern remains. At a certain point, you mentioned of Finland and America, and you said the background matters. That's why you brought in the concept of reminding ourselves on exactly what has gone on, data, especially with our current education policy design. Straight away from the primary level, then secondary, then university. You bridge it faster. You took us to the university. You also talked about the primary education system, the universal primary education, and also the university secondary education. maybe I'm not preempting, and I'm hopeful, if anything, that the new curriculum should do better. But I still believe, as I go to you, Dr. Kabera, a lot is still needed to be done. The creation of awareness of what we are aiming at in the new dimension, the quality education, the issue of basic skills, and the understanding, which I want us not to forget, that we are having a gap of our job market demand in Uganda, and of which now, to you who are policy, implementers in the virtue of the organization we are working with, especially these education curriculum policies, it is something that even other institutions all over the country and through the enforcement of Ministry of Education, to my commentary, they needed to take into consideration into this, because it is still known to us, as you said, you are participating in designing, the curriculum
policy reviews.
Yes, and even the courses. Our courses are still bending rigid on what we had before when we were joining university. I joined university 2000, where you find Bachelor of Arts, what you find this, then maybe elementary education, then we are talking about history of Europe, 2000. We are still working. I'm appealing to university there, as also in this hosting of this program, that there is a need to redesign our courses which are being delivered, even if it's a degree, even if it's a diploma. 1 second. Because what I found out in my finding is, what we did is to train people in their basic skills straight away, where one know that I am now going to be an education specialist, maybe in art and craft. And you find that someone is looking for a trainer, cannot get someone. I am being trained in this area, maybe of IT, as a trainer. Meaning that even in your skill development, you'll be known that you are superseding others for you to be a trainer. Because when I looked at the National Development Plan, that's what I found lacking. And it brings us to our debate. This seems to be an issue to be addressed by the Ministry of Education, and all those who are part of this chain.
And before I come to it, you've articulated it very, very well. Because when you are saying that preamble was being done by one thing. When you say curriculum, which curriculum are we talking about? It has to be, first of all, from primary, secondary, and university. And whoever is listening to us should understand, when it comes to university, every university is allowed to develop its own curriculum. So it's an opportunity for us at what we are doing at Victoria. I will tell you, he writes most of the curriculum using that. He has developed several programs that as a dean. Yes, exactly. So before we leave primary, secondary, at the university we have an opportunity to change the things that went wrong. But let me leave it to you. You are a guru in this area. You can take it on.
Thank you so much. There's a lot that we're supposed to react to, but there are some key issues that I would have loved to highlight. When we talk about quality education, what comes into our minds? When we talk about quality education, by the way, surprisingly, quality education is not about how eloquent you are in English. Quality education is not about how much you exercise your skills and all that. Even participation in education is a sub-compartment of quality education. That is why MPGs came up with the concept of free education. We extracted from that universal access to education.
They talk about quality.
Yes, the ideology at that time was quality under access, widening participation. Now we have
SDGs.
We have SDGs. Under SDGs, there is also a component of quality education.
Yes.
So all those components, thank you so much for joining. So all those components are very, very important. We cannot fail to notice that. In as much as UPE has its own loopholes, but it widens participation. Because for me, I will not shy away. The beauty of education, it gives you the academic freedom. You don't really mind about what people will talk. You live your own world, and that's the truth. So the truth is, I had been chased from school for 5,000, construction fee 2,000 in P4. I can never forget that. And
you under UPE?
I was under UPE. One who's triggering, who's making me remember all these numbers. So 5,000 in 2000 had failed, and I was dropping out. But I told Magezi that my dream is Makerere. I will, if it means digging in people's farms, I will dig until I step foot in the ivory tower, right? But UPE had given us the opportunity initially, those from less privileged background, to also have access into education. So let us not water down its relevance. Notwithstanding its problems.
And we never shy away from mentioning them.
Getting back to competence-based curriculum, or competent, and some of the gist of what you've been talking about. There are two people in this country. I didn't have a TV by the time the Amanya Mushegas were at the helm of their decisions in this country, the likes of Captain Francis Babu. Honestly speaking, recently I was so excited to meet Fajil Mande in Makerere University Library. Those are people who used to study in history in SST. That who is the Fajil Mande, the prime minister of this country, such and such, because they were part of the content curriculum that we have been studying, we are being taught. I can understand, But today, at the time I have TV in my house, and I'm in the scholarly community, and I'm socially assertive, I am seeing two people in this country that are doing tremendous work towards education. The Vice Chancellor of Victoria University. If you would take time and listen with intent or with intentions to Dr. Lawrence Muganga when he's articulating or debating on education, we would have a better Uganda. And I'm so happy that the vice of our country, the First Lady, is so much in the same line of reasoning with the ideas of Dr. Muganga, because that is the world we are heading. A minute, before we go, please. Another man, Frank Gashumba. Frank Gashumba is so much political leaning, but I can never forget the day, and I echo, where at some hotel down there, I was in my last year, Makerere University. He came and told us, he came with his daughter, Shaila Gashumba, and told us that for me, I realized that my daughter she was good in class, but her niche was in education, and I took her out, introduced her into media. You get?
The next one post and makes millions.
Today, I don't think that she earns less than 10 million a month.
That's an understatement.
That is an understatement.
She has learned to use the social media to make money. She's the kind of person who will post one thing on YouTube and she'll get millions of shillings that people even who have degrees can never make even in a food.
That Bob has been on, that girl has been on billboards.
Money she has made.
Was able to. So what am I trying to arrive at? That parents should not be negated in the education of their children. Competence-based curriculum must bring in the element of
parents. We shouldn't throw it at government.
We shouldn't throw it at government. That's where we go wrong as key players in education.
Okay, the point well taken, and you brought it, you will continue from there. The role of the parents into this, not only to sell your land and you take the child to school, but to understand that I need to be near, closer to the child, or maybe you have someone who understands better than me, so that my child, that the potential, the talent is easily identified. Stay tuned with Smart on the 4 TV. We are going for a commercial break. The discussion is becoming better and better, not bitter. Please, God bless you. See you in the next session.